This episode of the Creep Street Podcast is brought to you by Martini Coffee Roasters. You know, people always look at me weird when I say I start off every morning with a big old martini. But then I set them straight, and I tell them I'm talking about Martini Coffee Roasters coffee. A delicious coffee made by the Martini family. They roast their coffee using a traditional method of sight and sound to roast those little babies to perfection. And they also sell green coffee beans for those home roasters out there. And right now, fans of the Creep Street Podcast can get 20% off their entire order by using the code CREEPSTREET at martinicoffee.com. Once again, for 20% off your order, use the code CREEPSTREET at martinicoffee.com. Martini Coffee Roasters, the perfect coffee to keep you creeps caffeinated.
You've taken a wrong turn down Creep Street. From
out of the spiraling galaxies, from the roaring seas of connected energies, come the vehicles of light. The Prince of the Realms ordains great gifts for people of Earth to change our world, and all there in spaceships are lovingly laden. The Space Fleet Coordinator, Uriel, extends the lighted hand. Hearken to the welcome hum. Awake! Awake!
Citizens of the Milky Way, my name is Maureen Bogey.
And my name is Dylan Hackworth.
And you are listening to that Creep Street Podcast.
Yes, and by
Wow.
Citizens of the Milky Way, we mean it literally. This goes out to our Unarian space brothers.
That's right. Dylan, thank you for starting off this episode just full throttle, going for it with that. That was amazing.
Yes.
And I can't wait to find out what the heck you're even talking about.
Oh, I can't wait to fucking spill the porridge.
We're going to have fun. We're going to love it. You guys are going to love it whether you like it or not.
But you're going to fucking like it.
But you're going to like it.
Believe me.
Before we get started, we are on Instagram and Facebook at Creep Street Podcast. We're at Twitter at Creep Street Pod. On Facebook, we also have a subgroup called Citizens of the Milky Way, where it's just a smaller group where we kind of are able to interact a little bit more, where other people can post fun articles, us too. It's just kind of a fun little something.
Oh, yeah.
If you're interested in that, just head on over to our Facebook page, our main Facebook page.
Oh, yeah.
And then at the top, there'll be a little link there
Yep.
for Citizens of the Milky Way. That's that. Bada bing, baby. But if one episode a week is just not enough Creep Street for you, we encourage you to go on over to patreon.com/Creep Street Podcast to check out some of our fantastic bonus content.
Oh, yeah.
We're adding to it all the time, bonus episodes and just fun little bonus goodies along the way as well.
Absolutely. Little something for everybody.
That's right. I say this all the time. We love all of our listeners. We love all of our Patreon donors. But there is just something about that top tier. Dylan, will you please list off those top tier honeys?
Oh, I'd rather die than not. Of course, the dream James Watkins, the Finnish face Via Alungfist, the madman Marcus Hall, the vivacious Vicky McHugh, the tenacious Teresa Hackworth, the heartbreak kid Chris Hackworth, the oh-so-suave Sean Richardson, the British bonebreaker Bex Martin, the notorious Nicholas Barker, the terrified Taylor Lashmet, the Count of Cool Cameron Corliss, the Archduke of Attitude Adam Archer, the sinister Sam Kiker, the Nightmare of New Zealand Noeline Vivilli, the Leviathan Levi Mace, and the loathsome Johnny Love.
Oh, wow. It just gets better every time. Every time I hear it, I think I know how good it's going to be, and yet it surpasses it every time. If you would like to be like those straight honeys, head on over to patreon.com/Creep Street, a podcast. Now, what did we do last week?
We did the Black Monk, the Black Monk haunting, the Black Monk of Pontefract.
Of course. Last week, loved that episode.
Oh, yeah.
Very fun, very classic, I would say. You know, classic haunted house saga.
Oh, yeah.
But today we thought we needed to look higher, look up. We needed to maybe open our minds a little bit. Maybe see what else is friggin' out there.
Oh, and there's a lot out there.
It sounds like it, and I can't wait to learn about it. Dylan, if you don't tell us the title or just the topic of today's podcast, right now I'm just gonna snap.
Today's episode is The Cult of Unarius.
Thank you for saying it. Now I shan't snap. I am so excited for this episode.
Oh my gosh, this is all kinds of batshit fun.
Yes. When we were first cooking up Creep Street, you know, when the gestation period was just beginning for good old Creep Street podcast.
Yeah, for good old CSP.
There it is. We actually, one of the first things we were into was cults.
Yes.
Creep Street was almost a cult-specific podcast.
Yeah.
And as, you know, time went by, we decided to, you know, we wanted to have a huge range of topics to choose from. We kind of like that there's so many different things. But cults have been such a point of fascination for the both of us.
Oh, yeah.
For years. I mean, before we even knew each other, I think we both were really, really interested in it. And I know I've said this before, but we don't do a dang enough of them here on Creep Street.
We're going to be doing more because they are precious to us. We have a special appetite for cult stories.
Yes. And what I love about them is there is such a huge range of what a cult can be.
Absolutely.
Of course, there are the incredibly dangerous, evil cults,
right,
of course, that we will talk about ad nauseum later on. But there are also some cults that are just kind of fun and
just
wild.
Just kind of batshit wild in a way that almost there's an exuberance to it.
Yes, there's a light to it. And that doesn't mean that I think you should join these cults, but it's a little something. And I hope I won't eat my words later because I don't know exactly what you're going to tell us today. So Dylan, let's find out. I'm excited. Take it away.
All right, well, let me start off by giving you my sources. First was Unarius Academy of Science at roadsideamerica.com. The next was The Strange Tale of a Bonkers UFO Cult by Brent Swanser at Mysterious Universe, which, by the way, shows...
there we go. They kind of they let you know what's going on in the headline.
They let you know where they stand on it.
It's a bit...
in the headline.
I hate to say editorializing, but god damn it, I think that's literally exactly what it is.
They nailed it. Also, The Infinite Concept of Cosmic Creation by Ernest Norman, one of the founder's own works. And also a documentary called The Children of Light, directed by Bill Perrin.
Absolutely recommend that documentary to anyone.
Oh, yeah. Starting off, let's give some background info onto what this cult actually is.
Please.
And how it was founded, because I don't know how widely known this one is.
Yeah, this isn't one of the big, hitters, as it were. So let's pop off.
Well, Unarius, the word Unarius is actually meant to be an acronym, which is short for Universal Articulate Interdimensional Understanding of Science.
Okay, I kind of get why they, anachronized it or whatever it's called.
Now, this is going to be a very nebulous discussion. There's so much lore that they kind of freely let people put in their own lore. Almost.
Okay, a little bit like
I'm
fan
going
fiction
in a weird way, and we are going, specifically that word fan fiction, we're going to get into that because they have interesting things about pop culture. They have interesting ideas about where our pop culture comes from.
Okay, this is great news.
Before we get into what the group really believes, we're going to talk about its founders, Ernest and Ruth Norman. Now, it was Ernest Norman's works and writings that kind of laid the groundwork and central philosophy of the Unarians. But it's Ruth, especially if you're an outsider to the group, she is the face of Unarians.
Yes.
Otherwise known as Queen Uriel. We will get to that.
Oh my God, I cannot wait.
We will get to that.
But this kind of husband and wife duo thing is very popular in cults.
Yes.
The Alamo family did this. Heaven's Gate kind of did this. They weren't married, but you'll see this. That's a pattern.
I guess there's still somewhat a schism in the Unarian world. There's people that kind of want to take it back to what Ernest Norman first envisioned it. And then there's people that, of course, follow Ruth. But we will get into all of that.
Yeah, because Ruth really made it her own.
Stuff. So Ernest Leland Norman was born on November 11th, 1904, and he was a self-proclaimed boy genius.
Oh, okay.
He claimed that at only 7 years of age, he assembled a microscope using parts from a telescope he had. And needless to say, he also claimed that he was just like a math whiz and that he also had certain telekinetic abilities when he was young.
Wow. Okay. Well, first of all, can I just really quickly say a telescope is just a really big microscope. So you had all of the correct items there. So that was
just a reverse telescope.
I'm not impressed by that.
Yeah.
But the other stuff, I guess, you are a genius. So very cool.
So at age 17, Ernest moved with his family to California, and it was at about the age 23 that he started to really dabble and become interested in, very esoteric topics like clairvoyancy, palmistry, fortune-telling, all that stuff.
Very cool.
So this fascination with the esoteric would only increase, and he kind of was like a sponge. He absorbed everything he could. Well, skip forward many decades to when Ernest is 50 years old.
Okay.
It's February 1954 when Ernest would meet the woman who would be his future wife and co-founder of Unarius.
Oh.
Ruth Niels. They were immediately smitten with one another, especially apparently when Ernest told Ruth that she had apparently once in a former life been the daughter of a pharaoh.
Oh.
And had helped protect the baby Moses.
Oh my God, Ruth said this?
Ernest told this to Ruth when they met.
Oh, Ernest said this.
Likewise.
I'm sorry, I'm all freaking turned around here. This is fantastic news.
Likewise, both of them would claim that later in the day, a clairvoyant would tell Ernest that he was being followed by 3 white bearded men holding massive books. No one else could obviously see these 3 men. Apparently, even Ernest couldn't. But apparently, they believed these 3 men were none other than Elisha, Ezra, and Enoch.
Oh.
And these giant books they were carrying were the tomes that Ernest Norman would later write in life.
Oh, interesting. Okay. And let me say here, this man is in his 50s. Let that be a lesson to us all. This man hadn't even gotten to being a cult leader yet.
Right.
You know what? There's no timeline on success.
Exactly.
You can be in your 50s and then begin a cult. And you don't have to do it when you're 20s. You guys, it's fine.
Now, let's talk about Ruth.
Please.
So, before she was Queen Uriel, she was Ruth Norman. Born, of course, Ruth Niels, on August 18th, 1900, in Indianapolis, Indiana.
Okay.
Now, Ruth was born into a very hard life. The sources all said she grew up kind of dirt poor, and she didn't get much schooling because she would have to work a variety of jobs to live. Ernest was her final husband, but he was her 4th husband, and apparently the husbands before Ernest were somewhere like alcoholics, abusive. So she had a very, very shitty life.
Yeah.
Now, devoted Unarians, some at least, will claim that the 2 of them got married on the same day that they met. And actually, to this day, formally celebrate Ernest and Ruth's anniversary every year on February 14th, so Valentine's Day.
And that's the day they met.
That's what the story is.
That's nice. That's kind of cute.
Now, some sources claim that Ruth was actually still married to her 3rd husband when she met Ernest, and that the divorce took a few years, and that they didn't actually get married until 1956. But either way, that kind of doesn't matter.
It's like, whatever.
I kind of enjoy, even if that's not true, I kind of enjoy their story more.
I like it too. And also, it's like, I know she wasn't like technically divorced, but like, whatever. It was like she had a shitty life. Finally, she meets someone that's good to her, calls her a fucking daughter of a pharaoh. Right, and he's
finally a man's treating her right. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, how can that not feel good?
Now, after meeting, the couple would travel around California, kind of spreading their new ideology they were working on. And you see, Ernest had actually begun writing and publishing books, all of which, well, I don't know if all of them, but there's a certain collection of his books called Pulse of Creation that are apparently he all received via channeling some of these extraterrestrial beings that we're going to get into, these space brothers.
Wow, space brothers?
And that's actually what they call them. We'll get to it.
Oh my God, there are space brothers in this episode.
Yeah.
Well, okay, just when you thought you knew what was going to happen, you just don't.
Now, these books had gained an avid following in a lot of New Age circles. Now, eventually, they would go on and kind of start a home base in El Cajon, California. California, which is, I guess, a suburb of San Diego.
Cute.
Now let's actually get into kind of the ideas, the philosophy of the Unarians.
Yes, this is where I need the info, quick.
We've gotten our rundown of Ruth and Ernest, so now let's actually talk about the material.
Because we're all jonesing to know, what is this about?
Right. Now, obviously, I am oversimplifying this. I'm trying to break this down into bits the best I can.
Right.
So essentially, there's a few ingredients that are kind of a mainstay of the philosophy. One is that obviously there's life on other planets. Two, that there is sort of an intelligent, creative force.
Okay.
And that the goal of humans is to reach a new level of consciousness in order to sort of rejoin these advanced civilizations. And that eventually these intelligences will come to visit us. So there's certain things you're going to find it really blends a lot of Western and Eastern philosophies. There's a lot of reincarnation, karma from Eastern ideals, but then there's also kind of these ideas of like good versus evil, God and devil sort of stuff that you have in Western.
Yeah.
It's very fascinating.
Because that whole idea of kind of what those three main things that you said.
Right.
First of all, I just find that so interesting because that's really not that crazy.
Right. Well, and the other big thing I forgot is the reincarnation. We have all apparently been reincarnated countless times in different lives. Some were former lives that existed here on Earth. Some of them were on other planets.
Right. But this also, going back again to those three things, the idea with the three where it's like, it sounds a lot like Christianity.
Yeah.
If you kind of, instead of thinking about it as aliens, you think about it as God and angels or the celestial kingdom, if you will.
Right.
So it's like you believe that there is a God elsewhere, and you believe that if you do such and such, that you will be able to meet God.
Right.
But then also this kind of sounds a lot like the ancient alien type kind of similar vibe, where pretty much like what you said, there is some universal creation force.
Right.
And that there are these other intelligent beings that want to communicate with us or will communicate with us once we're able to handle it.
Right.
Or once we can see it.
Right.
So and that's kind of the idea of like 4D beings in a 3D body. Or if you're on DMT, you can see maybe these
Great point.
things that are around. So it's interesting just right off the bat. It doesn't sound crazy. You know what I mean? Like you kind of see how people could easily be like, okay, I'm interested.
Right.
You know, it's not a totally insane concept.
Here's a paragraph from one of my sources. I'll just read it directly because it does a good job of kind of summing everything up.
The main goal of the group was to promote a new interdimensional science of life based upon fourth dimensional physics principles, and they were heavily into this interdimensional aspect of existence. The main idea was that the soul is immortal, that we are constantly reincarnated over many lifetimes, all of this controlled by interplanetary alien overlords who would frequently give various channeled messages to followers, but mostly through Ernest. Unarius touted itself as a scientific belief system based on real laws of proven fourth-dimensional science, and it all involved an elaborate world of hodgepodge of half-baked ideas on atoms, karma, reincarnation, past life memories, channeling, vibrational energies, cosmic forces, and spiritual planets. If one could master these far-out concepts, they were said to be in full control of their life and able to heal themselves of any woe life could throw at them.
So that kind of puts it up. And everything is determined by this board of directors. These alien overlords, also referred to as Unarius.
Board of directors.
Right.
Yes. Okay. This is very interesting. That answered a lot of questions for me because that it didn't really say a ton. It's kind of one of those things where it's like we're listing off a bunch of buzzwords in mentioning science and saying that we reference proven fourth dimensional physics and they say like atoms and blah, blah, blah. So it makes you think that it's real, quote unquote real, but then if you're really listening, it is all like theoretical.
Right.
It reminds me of Scientology in that way.
Right.
Where it makes you kind of think that this is kind of rooted in science, but it's not.
Right. Exactly.
You know, but I am kind of into the vibes though. I'll be honest. I would go to a meeting maybe.
Well, notice the line that says they touted themselves as a scientific belief system.
Right.
The Unarians do not like being called a religion. They don't like being called a cult either, but they also don't like being called a religion. They see themselves as science-based, just science that most humans can't comprehend yet.
Wow. Classic.
What's interesting about Unarius is that it's, like I said, a unique blend of these Western and Eastern ideals. Now, Unarians, like I said, believe we have been reincarnated numerous times. And another large facet of this system, this belief system, revolves around energy. We're all energy, and the whole universe is made up of energy, and obviously there is both negative and positive energy. Depending if you thrived on good or bad energy would determine your next life. I might be misunderstanding this, but I'm going to say this the best I can wrap my head around.
Yes.
But from my understanding, the Unarian view is that we're all sort of these neutral beings that are being driven by certain things. So it's the energy we use to create and to obtain things that make it good or bad. So like, say that you were once in a past life someone really bad, like a cult leader. In your next life, you would still have those traits that made you a successful cult leader. Maybe you're charismatic and you're very manipulative in a way that you can get people to do what you want. But maybe in this next life, you become a songwriter or you become a big tech billionaire. Like, you still have those same traits, but try to use them for a better, more positive. That's kind of their ideology.
So it's kind of the goal, I guess, or the idea is that each life you become better.
That's the goal, yes.
That's the goal.
Yes.
But that doesn't always happen. Like, you need to follow this scientific method.
Right. And your traits that took you to a bad place before, they'll still be there, but you want to use them to take yourself to a better place.
Yes. Okay, this is a lot like Scientology. I wonder if L. Ron Hubbard took this to make Scientology, actually, because it's very similar. Where it's the idea that, and obviously we're going to do many episodes on Scientology at some point, but basically, for those who don't know, one of the things that Scientologists do is this thing called auditing, which is, it's kind of like therapy, basically, but bad. The idea is if you're a Scientologist, like the more that you're able to get through or the closer you are to going clear, you kind of pick up where you left off in the next life.
Right.
So even if you are not going to complete the journey, the ladder, it's the same idea that what you were doing in this current life affects you in the next life, and you have such a huge advantage to you if you're aware of what you're doing and how you need to improve for the next life. And the only way that is through Unarius or Scientology or whatever.
Exactly. And if you can imagine, if you were once a really bad person in a past life, you probably have some trauma, some issues you need to work out in this life.
So are you going to tell me that they started telling people that they were really bad people in past lives?
Well, yeah.
That's so interesting. That's so weird that no one was just like a baker in their past life.
Well, that's why Ernest introduced the concept of past life therapy. Now, the process of past life therapy will evolve, and it will become something else entirely once Ruth takes over.
Ruth, my girl.
Now,
I mean, she's probably bad, but let's see.
A few things to know about Ernest, by the way. He's often referred to as Dr. Ernest Norman. Ernest actually, in real life, did not have much of an education.
Yeah.
His followers call him Dr. Ernest Norman. He claims that all of this vast knowledge he has came from his past lives.
Oh, yeah.
So that's where he doesn't need a piece of paper to tell him he's smart. You know what I mean?
You know what I'm saying?
Now,
most cult leaders say that. Literally, most. L. Ron Hubbard said that. David Koresh said stuff like that. Yeah, that's pretty standard.
While Unarius is the name of the organization, according to Ernest Norman, Unarius was also the name of this sort of interplanetary federation set up between these planets that had these super intelligent beings on.
This is exciting. Okay.
In this federation of planets, there are 33 planets, including the planet Earth. Now, oftentimes, students of Unarius will refer to these extraterrestrials as, quote, space brothers.
Oh, there they are, the space bros.
Or brothers of light. Now, Unarians believe that throughout the history of humanity, now this is where the ancient alien shit starts to come in.
Hell yeah.
Unarians believe throughout the history of humanity, there has been times when these advanced beings would come down at certain critical points in our evolution, not just physical evolution like Darwin, but also social evolution, our technical evolution, things like that. these elite beings would come down occasionally at these special turning points in history to sort of usher us in the right direction. So, for example, Unarians believe that folks such as Jesus Christ, Buddha, Muhammad, all of them were actually advanced beings. But not just religious figures, also political figures, certain artists, all this stuff.
Certain people had kind of had it figured out.
Yes.
As being those higher beings, did they know they were those higher beings?
Well, here's the thing. The Unarians claim that the messages these folks were trying to give us was the message of the Unarians.
Okay.
But that through time and humans, people interacting, it became something else.
It's gotten kind of messed up.
Now, I'm a little foggy about this, so try to stay with me here.
What do you mean this is completely crystal clear?
You see, 32 of these 33 planets have evolved to a higher level of consciousness. And they are waiting and trying to aid us on Earth in our evolution so that we can join and complete the Interplanetary Federation.
Right.
Along the way, during our evolution and growth, they would come, whether it was in the form of Jesus or Buddha or whomever. For example, the most recent person they believe to have come up until this time was Albert Einstein. So he got us to a certain point. We split the atom. We're harnessing atomic energy.
Okay. Yeah.
Not long after that, we went to the moon, all this stuff. Well, the Federation apparently has gotten a little concerned with our atomic capabilities. So this is why they've sent Ernest and Ruth.
Okay, so they sent a highly trained scientist, and then they also just sent these two people from the Midwest.
And they are the next ones being sent to help us prepare ourselves for the impending arrival of these alien overlords. And they've tried before. They believe in Atlantis. They believe before Atlantis, there was a place called Lemuria. And once again, they were gifted with technology, but instead of using that technology to better ourselves, we used it to control people.
Right.
That civilization fell. The few that survived and were spiritual enough founded Atlantis. But it happened again, shit like that.
That is interesting. And that is not only a kind of fantastical cult thought. Now, that is not a completely ridiculous theory. At the time it was, though. This kind of idea that I was just talking about is very new. So it is crazy, but it's not totally crazy. But then you kind of add the whole intergalactic federation and I don't know, is it true? Is it not? But I'm buckling up.
We're just getting started.
Okay, yeah.
Now, like we said before, they kind of blend both Western and Eastern ideals.
Yes, which I love.
So we've talked about, the reincarnation thing. Like I said, they also have this Western idea, sort of good versus evil. But it's not like a straight up good versus evil.
Yeah.
Here's an example. Sometime in the early 60s, a student joined who would go on to be a channeler for the group as well. His name was Charles Spiegel. But that name would change numerous times. Most often, I guess, he went by the name Antares.
Oh, cool.
But the Unarians believed that Spiegel was actually Lucifer in a past life. That in all of his past lives, he had been bad people. Now, remember what the Unarians believe. Once you reincarnate, you'll have those traits, but it doesn't necessarily mean you have to use them in a bad way.
Yes.
Part of the reason why Ruth and Ernest are here is to keep Charles, or what did I call him, Antares, on the right side of the tracks.
Yes. This is a little bit of, yes, you are a Slytherin, but that doesn't mean you gotta be a conniving little dick.
Exactly.
It means, you're very ambitious.
That's
and
actually
you're hardworking.
That's actually a great example. Kind of like that. Like, just because you're Slytherin doesn't mean you gotta be an asshole.
Right.
You
can
gotta
actually
be bad.
Use your skills. But this guy, though, he was like actual the fallen angel Lucifer.
And every time in the documentary, one of the students uses this example of, in the biblical version, in the Abrahamic version of Lucifer, it's his ego, and he rebelled against God, and God cast him out of paradise. In their ideal, it's actually his own ego put him in a different wavelength, and therefore he kind of kicked himself out. He was in a different negative wavelength, and it essentially by default kicked himself out. So that's why every time he's reincarnated, they try to intervene to help him do the right thing, but something happens. He becomes drunk with power, and we're going to get into this because this is big.
Wow, this is dope.
For example, the other students said when they first met him, he was very arrogant and narcissistic, this student. And it was funny, I guess he would openly kind of contradict it, say, well, what about that? He would play the, what do you call it?
Devil's advocate.
Right.
Literally.
But they actually kind of invited this. They which is also weird about this cult. Typically, occult leaders do not like to have their...
No discourse.
And what's kind of interesting about this cult is, I don't know this for sure, but I feel like if any of us were just to walk in and be like, well, I'm the reincarnation of Elvis Presley, they would actually believe you maybe.
Yeah,
like they're kind of open to you being like, I used to be this person.
Because in lots of other cults, they will say things like that they are open to, the people, the flock, if you will. But they're not, and it's just the head of the cult or the church or whatever that is giving the orders and giving these revelations.
Right.
And this is, like you said, that's different. That's not the case at all.
And another thing, apparently, and there's a part in the documentary where she's telling them that they've all these people that are students together, they've all known each other in their past lives too. They've actually lived. And
I love this.
Apparently when this Charles Spiegel Antares walked in, he just turned one of the students they hadn't met before and he was like, I remember you. We were at Atlantis. You were one of Uriel's students in Atlantis. So he was like, he recognized this person from one of his past lives.
Interesting.
Another thing that's really interesting about the Unarians is they believe that any great work of art was either given to you by these extraterrestrials or it's something you remembered from your past life.
Oh.
So, and they love science fiction, of course. They believe that things like Star Trek, Star Wars, are all actually things that happened. So, for example, the Unarians would tell you that George Lucas did not just create Star Wars. He actually lived out that story in a past life. He may not remember.
Wow.
But the reason he was able to conceive of the story of Star Wars was because he lived it in his past life.
It was like a subconscious memory.
Exactly.
Wow.
And Spiegel, Antares, the man who used to be Lucifer, Unarians would tell you that he was Darth Sidious, the evil emperor in the Star Wars films.
Oh my God. So Lucifer is in the goddamn Star Wars universe?
There you go.
In this universe, and it's also real. Ewoks are real.
They're all real, baby.
Damn, they're cute.
Now, likewise, they would tell you Gene Roddenberry, who created Star Trek, this was a past life that he had lived. Unarians believed Spiegel, Antares, had reincarnated on one of the planets of the lower Orion system, which they claim was a system of negative energy planets.
Oh.
And him now being reincarnated, the Unarians had a chance to sort of save his soul. All of those talents would be so useful.
So, but what do they think about art or music? I can kind of understand the sci-fi stuff.
Right. And that was a question I was wondering too, because obviously they focus on sci-fi. That's a great question. And remember, Tesla is also they love Tesla in this cult. And remember, Tesla thought he was in contact with extraterrestrials.
I know, I was just going to say that. Isn't that fucking crazy?
Go to our Patreon. One of the first things I read his article he wrote where he talked about how he might be in touch with other...
So Nikola Tesla said he might be in touch with other aliens, and this cult says that he was.
Right, because another big thing about them is free, unlimited energy, and that Tesla was sort of given a peek at that and might have made that, And here's an interesting thing, too. Of course, all the students started to remember their past lives on Orion, too. Some of them were the oppressor, some were the oppressed. Like in the documentary, these two gals, they're talking about how they had to work through some issues between the two of them because of a thing in their past life. They were a part of this elite police that was sort of like the SS for the elite. They were like stormtroopers, essentially,
Damn.
And I guess one of their brothers or a sibling had done something against the law, and they wanted to let it slide, but the other one wouldn't, and so they had this beef that was still hanging on.
So you had to work on that now. And that is another thing that comes through in Scientology. Right? I really think L. Ron Hubbard probably stole a lot of his ideas from this cult. and maybe vice versa.
It was very much, they described it like a 1984, and they even obviously believed that Orwell got the idea from his past life. And that even today, when people who suffer from paranoia or think that people are after them when there aren't or something, is that it's actually trauma from your past life when you lived in this 1984 situation.
Wow. Okay. A question for you. And I know that this is confusing. And also, cults are usually confusing by design, just so you know. But do they think that human beings, that they can be, anyone can have been reincarnated from lives either on Earth or elsewhere in the Federation?
Right, exactly.
But the thing is that it's when the humans are in their own bodies that they can actually ascend to this next level. And so the human race are the only ones that haven't ascended to that next level yet.
Yeah, like this Earth.
And it is the idea that just enough people need to gain this higher sense, this higher self.
Yes, and we will. There's more to this coming because once we're ready, I'm going to tell you what happens.
Okay, and just one more question.
Yeah.
And if this needs to wait until then too, I respect your organization of this episode, but you said that people like Jesus or Muhammad or Buddha, they were actual beings from other places.
That's what the Unarians believe.
That's the Unarians thing. But that's not everyone. Like that was specific, like just for the heavy hitters.
Right, just the heavy hitters.
And then everyone else is a human being, but they're just maybe remembering things subconsciously.
A divine.
Or they are in this cult and they are accessing it on purpose.
Yeah. So there's select times when they need to bring in a legit person to like shake shit up.
Right.
When it's done. But still, like George Lucas, from what I understand, I don't think they think he's one of these people.
Yes.
He's just remembering. He's maybe for whatever reason more in touch, whether he knows it or not. He's more spiritually attuned and he can, remember these things.
So according to the Unarius cult, George Lucas is close but not quite up to Jesus Christ's standard.
Well, I mean, Ernest claimed to have been Jesus Christ in former life, so I mean,
we'll figure it out. I think we just got to go with the flow. I think I just need to relax, baby, and just let the sweet, sweet science wash over.
That's right. Remember, this is all hard science.
The hardest
of science.
Just
throbbing, veiny, quivering science.
Thick science.
Now, as we said, Ernest dies in 1971, and
R.I.P.
Ruth takes over, and the focus of the Unarians would change. A few more things about Ernest, though, before we close the book on him. While Ernest and Ruth loved each other very much, they were very different in terms of personality. The best way you can describe Ernest is like a walking REM cycle. He is the most boring. He literally sounds like,
and it will come to pass.
Yeah.
When the Unarian space brotherhood finds.
It's like that.
It's sleepy Warren Jeffs.
Exactly. And that's already a sleepy ass motherfucker.
And that man is already soft-spoken for Christ's sake. So he was, God bless him, we love Ernest for what he did, but a little boring.
They believed that and I didn't really know what to make of this, because so that's why I saved it for when we close the book on him. They believe that there is a planet where many of these supreme beings lived or used to live, and that Ernest and Uriel, or Ruth, used to live on this planet, but Ernest was, quote, overshadowed by the Archangel Raphael.
Oh.
And the sources make a point that this is not the Archangel Raphael from the Abrahamic religions.
Oh, a different dude.
This is the Archangel in the world of Unarians it means just one of these ascended masters.
Oh, okay.
They don't go into specifics like what does it mean he overshadowed him. Apparently his glory was being stolen. It was weird. I don't get it. It's
Mormonism?
It's not hard to show up fucking Ernest, though.
Ernest, we love you, but you gotta like put on a show.
A few card tricks, at least.
Yeah, or just speak up for the love of goosh. But though this is a thing in Mormonism as well. When we do our FLDS episode, you'll see that this idea that in the afterlife that people have planets and that the planets are kind of given to you or bequeathed to those who are worthy.
And before we end it on Ernest, just some interesting stuff about him. Like I said, most of his books he apparently was channeling. Like, for example, his book, The Voice of Venus, Ernest is apparently, he was channeling one of these beings that live on Venus, and they showed him the Venusian capital.
Wow.
And they were like these beings of pure energy. And likewise, in another book, he channels someone from Mars, and he takes this tour of this vast city in the underground that they're still there, but we can't, they're underground.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Now get ready for another barrage of info. So technology is as much a part of the core beliefs of the Unarians as is spirituality. But the whole thing is, for the technology to benefit us, we have to be good spiritually.
Scientology, y'all.
So take the legend of Atlantis, for example. You know, we're given technology by these beings. About 1,000 years go by, and we became more about the tech than the spirituality. We started to use it to control the population, blah, blah, blah. And then, of course, as we said, the Lemurians, apparently another civilization before the Atlanteans. The Martians are apparently a very spiritual people.
Oh, that's cool.
And they actually came to help Earth and to share technology. But apparently the Lemurians, this is why Lemuria fell. So this is before Atlantis. But the Lemurians used that tech against the Martians, driving them back to Mars.
That sucks.
But when I guess an asteroid from another galaxy, the reason why Mars doesn't have an atmosphere and they were driven underground was because this asteroid, it destroyed the atmosphere of Mars, but it also set the Earth on its current axis.
Yeah.
Weird stuff.
It's science-y thoughts is what it is.
While Atlantis is thriving, they erect what they call a power tower, which is very much like Tesla's Tesla coil.
Oh.
And like I said before, Unarians believe that Tesla was in contact with they believe those aliens that he thought he was in contact with was the Unarians.
Wow. Okay. That's so weird. That is weird because Nikola Tesla did think that.
Right. He didn't know about Unarians.
He didn't put the name to it.
But he thought he was, in contact with these extraterrestrials.
That's so wild.
So, of course, Ruth and Ernest all lived during these different eras in different roles. After Atlantis, next came Egypt, and apparently Ruth and Ernest were reincarnated as Isis and Osiris.
Oh, shit.
Same story over and over.
They're always kind of reincarnated as buddies.
Every time they're reincarnated, it's going to be something good, but we find a way to fuck it up.
Yeah. That sucks. Okay.
Finally, on to Ruth.
Please, I need Ruth. We need her. Come on.
Ruth was the opposite. She was all charisma.
Yes. She loved a show.
Ruth was all charisma. When Ernest passed away in 1971, she took over the organization. And while obviously the philosophy remained the same, the direction changed drastically. Suddenly, it went from just working through your past trauma to prepping hardcore for the impending arrival of these alien overlords.
Yep.
So in 1973, that's when Ruth actually officially took on the alias of Uriel, the Archangel, which apparently Uriel is also an acronym for Universal, Radiant, Infinite, Eternal Light.
It also sounds like urinal.
After this, she bought up 67 acres of land in Jamul, California, and it was on this land that the Space Brothers were going to return.
Thank God, Jonathan and Drew Scott. Oh wait, that's the Property Brothers. Okay, we got the second best. We got the Space Bros, baby.
So now, remember you were talking earlier about once humans were ready, that's when they come, right?
Yes.
So let's talk about this whole arrival.
Yeah, what's going on? Yeah.
So Unarians believe that the Space Brothers will come in the form of 33 spaceships, one of them for Earth, so 32, and I guess maybe one's already here, I don't know.
Yeah.
All of these saucers will stack up on top of each other, each of them containing at least 1,000 of these advanced beings.
Damn, okay.
This structure will be a university for all the people of Earth to attend, and likewise, a bustling city will grow around. This university will be like the city center, and this bustling city will grow around it, and apparently the city will be free, and it will have endless resources, endless energy, and it's free to live there.
Wow. Okay,
that will encourage, that's why, so even if you don't have much money, no matter where you're from, what your money situation is,
Right.
you can get there.
Right. So the idea is if your vibration is high enough, you can join this.
Right. Well, I think by this time, if enough of us have gotten ready that they can come, I think
see.
now it's for everybody.
Then we bring everyone up.
Everyone can come. But even
I like
then,
that. Okay.
Unarians say it will still take at least 1,000 years.
Damn.
Until we have grown enough to actually begin to travel to some of these other worlds.
I see. Okay. Wow. Okay. I gotta give it up. That is nice that they want to kind of bring the Federation to Earth and let the Earthlings thrive from it for a while. I think that's very nice until we are ready to really, full throttle, like raw dog it up there.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's nice. If I'm being honest, I don't love the idea that we're kind of just being really pushed into going to school. I'm sure we'll be learning about cool things, so that's good, but yeah.
My thing is like, what do you mean ready? Like, how about you just fucking come now and we'll catch up?
Yeah, it's like
We'll do some speed courses,
What
okay?
do we need
Why
to
not
do?
just come now?
right.
If everything's gonna be better, why don't you just fucking come now then?
I play Tetris, I do Sudoku. I mean, my brain is vibing hard. I have crystals. Like, the time is now. What else could I even freaking do? And that's another question that I have. What are they doing? It's just this like therapy thing that they do.
This is the main event, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay.
We have arrived at the main event.
That was an organic transition. Ever heard of it?
For anyone's interested, they have their own YouTube page with tons of videos
Oh,
you can
yeah,
check out.
please.
There's tons of videos. Before we get really into it, I'm going to play for you a clip of Queen Uriel. This clip's about 2 minutes long, but she is telling her followers about the impending arrival of the Space Brothers.
Oh, okay. Very cool.
Greetings, friends. I am delighted to be able, at this point in time in history, to be able to tell you about the space fleet landing that will come in the few years in the future. I have been working with many of the other planets, and 32 planets in particular, the leaders of these planets, who have transmitted through their minds to my consciousness and into this world, to the point where we now have, as Antares says, 88 volumes, with many more to come. The Space Brothers have told us several years ago that they would come to Earth before long, and they would even say at different times, we will come soon. Then later on they will say, they have said, we will come very soon. And for 5 or 6 years, I lived almost from day to day in expectation and waiting their arrival. Well, it was learned later on that there was much preparation to do for the Earth people to actually be ready or to be able to receive these other planetary dwellers. By the way, most of these planets are far, far ahead in all manners of ways and levels, especially of intelligence, than are the Earth people. And so they have much to give, to teach, to help us. And perhaps amazingly, they are very interested and anxious, actually anxious, to help the Earth people. And so this is my work now at the present time to prepare the Earth people.
So there you go.
Okay, so once again, we're saying a lot of preparing. We're saying a lot of getting ready. We're not really getting a ton of answers in terms of how are we getting ready, and
yeah.
how are we not ready, and why haven't you fixed it, and also how are we in the Federation?
It's time to talk about past life therapy, I
Here
think.
we go. Let's talk turkey.
So from what I could see from like the documentary, traditionally, and they still do the old school way too, past life therapy was more you would just kind of contemplate, imagine, and then when you were ready, you just tell people, well, in the past life, I think I poisoned this water source,
Yes.
and people applaud. And then once you've admitted it, you feel better, and it's kind of like you've
Purged that.
Right. Well,
That's Scientology as well.
Uriel upped the ante.
Okay, baby girl, what you got?
She incorporated past life therapy with the art of cinema.
Bitch, pop off. You know I'm listening.
The Unarians made tons of films, of short films, mostly improvised films.
Oh my God, yes.
In which they would act out things that they was apparently from past lives.
Oh, yes.
The idea was that in these films, they're not acting. They literally, once they're in character, they are actually living through the incident in their past life.
Oh.
And in essence, become that person on screen. And these films weren't just like for their own collection. No, they played all over the country on public access television.
This is incredible news. I mean, incredible news.
They played throughout the 70s, 80s, 90s. And if you've seen these are batshit nuts.
I mean, there is nothing, and I mean nothing, I love more than just a group of adults just going for it, just putting on costumes and just free associating. I mean, it's quite literally what Dylan and I do outside of podcasting, but these people do it as a way to ascend to a higher level. I mean, this role play, it's huge.
Also, like we said, Uriel was way more about getting ready for the Space Brothers.
Right.
To the point where she even told the press it's going to happen in 1974.
Wait, didn't they say that it was going to be like 1,000 years?
First, she said 1974. See, here's the thing. Before Ernest died, it was more kind of like the idea of like a rapture.
It's like, it's coming, but...
It's coming, but no one knows when. It's not like it's on this day. Even though, and we'll do an episode on people who have claimed to know the end of the world.
Many people. Many.
But like we said, this isn't an end of the world. This is like a...
Right, it's kind of a different thing.
Right, so there was nothing to like be scared. It wasn't
It's like a good thing.
Right. There wasn't...
Everyone.
I guess in that way it was good because none of the cult members sold their homes and shit like that.
Right, that is good.
Some of these, like in the documentary, they've been there since like the beginning and they're still just doing it like they're going to church on Sunday, you know? So the whole idea is 1974 comes, obviously it doesn't happen, but of course she explains there's an asterisk there. They'll come at this date if we are ready. Mm-hmm. So she then gives the date of 2001.
Oh, okay.
Well, Ruth Uriel would pass away in 1993, but as 2001 came, it didn't happen, but the Unarians said, well, when 9/11 happened, their view is when 9/11 happened, clearly we aren't ready. That was what set us back. And who knows, they could argue today that our technology, our social media, that we aren't using it for the right purposes. We're controlling people, we're harming, I'm sure that they could say that.
There's so many ways or things to point out to say, this is why we are not ready for the next level.
And just so everyone knows, I think today they don't try to put it's more now back to the classical sense of like, oh, it's going to happen when it happens.
Right.
And like I said, this isn't an end of the world thing, so it's not something they're also like, oh man, get ready, because it's more of like a joyous thing.
Prepare for it. And a truly joyous thing, not in a joyous way like the whole world is going to explode tomorrow and I'm going to be raptured. It's like, no, it's actually a good thing it's supposed to be a good thing for all of humanity.
Yeah.
So the people in this cult, are they able to have jobs and lives outside of the cult, or were they told to kind of more cultish fashion kind of give all of their possessions to the leader and kind of live their life for the leader?
Right. From what I can tell, none of that. Like, I think everyone still goes about their day. And also, everyone in it's older. There's no children. Did you remember in the video?
Yeah.
And even in some of the YouTube clip, I don't think I've seen any children.
Yeah.
It's usually like
people aren't being like born into this.
It's usually like 45 and up.
Interesting.
It's kind of weird. I don't know if they're not making an effort to evangelize or whatnot, but it seems like they're still doing. We just watched some of their 2020, one of their ceremonies.
Oh yeah, they do lots of like pomp and circumstance with their ceremonies of things, and it's all very just kind of nerds.
Right, and that's the thing. I don't want to say it's harmless if they're but from what I can tell, I haven't heard of anything in terms of or like financial manipulation or anything like that.
That's how I feel too, and that's why I kind of said that at the beginning of the episode. episode, and I think it's true, it seems like there wasn't much of a manipulation of the followers, and this was kind of the exception to the rule.
It's hard
that interesting one where it is kind of different, like they said, where it isn't really necessarily a religion. I guess it is, to them, it's more of a scientific, like, lifestyle choice.
Right. Yeah,
so it's not like,
interesting.
Like, they're able to have outside lives. And so a very, very bizarre and different cult than others this week. Dylan, thank you so much for doing all of that fantastic research.
Thank you. And
wow.
Of course, thank you for supporting the show. If you'd like a little bit more, of course, go to patreon.com/Creep Street Podcast.
That's right. Also, a like, a subscribe, a rate, tell a friend about us, post about us on social media. Really, any of those little things really add up, and we really do appreciate it.
We really do. Citizens of the Milky Way, my name is Dylan Hackworth.
I'm Maureen Bogey.
Good night and goodbye.
Bye.